Welcome to EPG Pathshala in the subject of information technology and in the paper of open source software. Today we will be discussing about file operations and permissions related to files. Friends, we are in the 8th module of open source software. In the previous modules, we have seen how to perform certain basic operations on file. Today, we will discuss more operations that are related to permissions and security. So, the learning objectives of this module are: first, we will try to get an overview of users and groups in Linux system. Later, we will get an overview of what are the different permissions that can be set on file and on directories. Then, we will see how to modify those permissions, that is how to modify permission of a file, how to modify permission of a directory. Later, we will see different commands that are related to setting owner of file or changing group of any file. And finally, we will see certain commands that are related to changing the default permission, or whenever a user creates a file, what can be the default permissions of a file or a directory. So, friends, let us begin our discussion. The first thing that comes into our mind is, when we talk about Linux operating system, there are users and the users belong to group. Now, why such kind of system is developed? Let us take an example. For instance, in a class there are 50 students. Now, each student, if he is working on Linux server, he is a user of that server. Apart from the student, there are faculties, there are lab staff, administrators who are part of that Linux system. As you can see in the diagram, there can be various users who are belonging to student group, who belong to the faculty group, who belong to the lab staff group. There can be admin, we call them root, and there can be services. The services are also identified by user ID. So, you can see students, they belong to the students group, and there is a group ID 57. So, each student, he is a separate user. So, each student will have a unique user ID, and they all belong to a common group, that is group ID is 57. Let us call it students group. Similarly, there are faculties who belong to the faculty group with the group ID 102. There is a lab staff group with group ID 113, and you can see there is some kind of intersection. So, a person, a faculty can belong to two groups at the same time. A faculty can belong to the faculty group as well as a faculty can belong to the lab staff group. Administrators, what we call super users or root, they also belong to the wheel group. The group ID 0 is for root users and the group name is wheel. Services are also users. So, different services like HTTPD, SSHD, they are all given user IDs and they belong to the particular group. Now, when we create a user, by default a user belongs to his own group, unless we specify the user is part of his own group. Using command line operations, we can make a user belong to multiple groups. So, there are commands like user add, user modify, through which we can create user and assign them to certain groups. So, a single user can belong to multiple groups at the same time. Now, why such kind of provision is there? Suppose a class has 50 students, they all work in labs for conducting practicals. Now, during exam, we want all those 50 students or the 50 usernames to be modified. That is, we won't allow those 50 students to work during exams, because they have their own login ID, their entire data might be in their folders. So, with a single command, we can modify the entire group. We can ban users from accessing their user ID or accessing their content, and we can create a separate group of exam where the student now belongs to exam group. So, we can enforce such kind of policies through which more security can be provided. Examination is a very simple case, but when we talk about corporate world, one user must not be able to see other users data, provided if the user belongs to the same group, we can assign permissions such that a user can see other users data of the same group. So, such kind of policies can be created. It can be user level policy or it can be group level policy. So, the file permissions and directory permissions are the basic security mechanism provided by the Linux system. Let us go ahead. There are few commands. Suppose if I have logged in and if I want to know my login ID, then I can use whoami command. Whoami command will display the current logged in user's user ID. ID command is another command that displays the user ID and group ID of a user who is logged in. Then there is groups command, which displays the group of currently logged in user. As you know, there is a file etc passwd which contains the details of user, that is what is the user ID, what is the group ID of that user, what will be the default shell when the user logs in. All these details, they are part of etc passwd file. The passwd file is in etc directory. Similarly, there is another file in etc directory, that is /etc/group file, which contains details of groups. You can go through those files. These files are read only. So, if you try to modify these files, you will not be permitted to modify those. This is a very simple example of file permission. The file is read only and a normal user cannot modify the content of that file. No doubt the user can read those files, user can copy those files, but the user is not permitted to make changes to /etc/passwd file. Let us move ahead. In Linux system, users can be of 3 types and the permissions can be of 3 types. When we say 3 types of user, the notation is first type is users, the other notation is groups and the third one is others. So, when we say 3 type of user, means if I have logged into the system, then I am a user. Whatever files I have created, I am the owner of that file. If I am belonging to a class, then I am belonging to the group of the class. It can be a students group or it can be faculty group. So, being a user, I have my own permission. Then there is a group of students or group of faculties. So, there are another set of permissions for the faculties group or maybe for students group. And the third category is others. Others means all other users. So, if I am creating a file, I want that file to be visible to all users irrespective of any group, then I can give permission to others. So, the file will be visible to any user of the Linux system. So, this is the categorization of users. There are 3 categories. One is user himself who can log in, then there is group to whom it belongs to, and the third is all other users apart from the user himself and the group users. Now, what different permissions can be given to files and directories? There are 3 permissions. One is read permission, the other is write permission and third is execute permission. So, any file or directory may have read permission, write permission and execute permission. So, when we try to combine, we get different combinations. Each user will have read, write, execute permission, group will have read, write, execute permission and others will have read, write, execute permission. These permissions can be modified for each file and for each directory. So, if you pick up any file, the file will be having some kind of permission for users, some sort of permission for group and some sort of permission for others. You take up any file or any directory, it will be using these 9 permissions, 3 for user, 3 for group and 3 for others. Out of these 9 permissions, any combination can be applied to a file or to a directory. So, the symbolic representation of permissions is like this: R means read permission, W means write permission, X means execute permission. When we come to users, U indicate the user himself who is the owner of the file, G indicates the group to whom the user belongs to, and O indicates others. When we say A indicates the combination of U, G and O, that is all. A stands for all. So, the permissions, when we give permission to A, the permission is given to user, group and others, all 3 categories. Operations like addition of permission and removal of permission can be done using plus sign and minus sign. So, the plus sign indicates addition operation, minus sign indicates removal operation, and equal sign indicates assignment operation. So, when we want to assign some permission, we use equal sign. When we want to add or remove permission, we use plus sign or minus sign. In the screen, you can see a command get FACL, that is file access control list. We are taking a simple file, file1.txt. If I want to know the permissions of this file, file1.txt, I will try the command get FACL and file name. So, the output will contain file name, who is the owner of this file. So, for this purpose I am using a demo user. Demo user is the owner of that file, and the demo user belongs to group 1. So, I have created a group called group 1, demo user belongs to that group 1, and these are the permissions. You can see RWX, the owner of file has read write execute permission, group also has read write execute permission, and others also have read write execute permission. So, in this case file1.txt contains all permissions to any kind of user, whether it is a owner, whether it is group, or whether they are all other rest of the users. These 3 permissions are given to each and every category of user. So, in all 9 permissions are given for file1.txt. Now, when we say file permission, what does RWX signify with respect to file permissions? So, when a file is given read permission, then the user can open and read that file. User can see the contents of file, that is, we can issue cat command with that file if we have read permission. Otherwise, if the read permission is not given, you will see a message permission denied. Now, if a person wants to modify file, he must have write permission. So, the W symbol indicates write permission. User can add contents to a file, that is append a file, remove some content, or he can modify the file. So, if I want to make a file modifiable, I will provide write permission to that file. X symbol indicates execute permission to a file. Now, X symbol is only for those files that are executable. In Linux, any file can be made executable. In future modules, we will see shell programs, that is shell scripts. So, the files that are created for shell programs can be made executable irrespective of an extension. So, a file with extension C or a file with extension .sh can be made executable, provided the file has that kind of content which can be executed. So, we can give execute permission to text file, but it does not mean the text file can run, it can execute on the system. This is somewhat different from Windows operating system. In Windows, the exe files are executable, sometimes .bat, .com files are executable, but in Linux, irrespective of any file extension, if we give execute permission, we say the file is executable. So, File permissions can be read permission to read the content of a file, it can be write permission which helps to modify that file, and there can be execute permission to make a file executable. Let us move ahead. In the screenshot, I have used ls-l command. You can see the list of files. There is file1.txt, file2.txt and so on. These files, they are belonging to the demo user. So, demo is the owner, demo user belongs to group 1, and you can see different permissions for these files. File 1 has all 9 permissions, first 3 for user, next 3 for group, the other 3 for others. File 2 has read, write, execute permission for user and group. It does not have any permission for others. So, this indicates other users who does not belong to the group 1 or who is not demo 1 user, they cannot see the file, they cannot modify the file, nor they can run the file. The third file, that is file3.txt, there is only read, write, execute permission given to the user. Groups and others, they are not given any permission. Next file is file 4. You can see W permission is missing for group and for others. So, the user can read file, modify the file or execute file, but the group or the users belonging to group 1 cannot modify the file, they can simply read or execute the file. Similarly, others cannot modify the file, they can read or execute the file. And finally, file 5 contains read, write, execute permission for user. It does not contain write permission for group members, and it does not have any permission for rest of the users. So, this is about file permissions. Let us move ahead to directory permission. Again, directories can have read, write, execute permission, but the interpretation will change. When we say read permission for a directory, it signifies the user can browse the directory and user can list the files of a directory. The write permission given to any directory will allow to create files or delete files within those directories. Apart from files, we can also create links to those files. Link is a kind of shortcut given to files. And execute permission, when it is given to directory, the user can navigate into that directory. And hyphen or the dash sign indicates no permission is granted to that directory. So, why directory permissions are required? Let us take an example. Suppose I want to create files that is shared for users. I am creating a notice which I want all my group members to read that notice. Naturally, the notice cannot be modified by others. So, what I will do is I will create a file with read permission, but it does not have write permission for groups or for other people, and I will place that file in a shared directory. The group members can read that file, but they cannot modify that file, nor they can delete that file. There are chances that a person who is group member may either modify or delete a file. So, to ensure that a person just reads that file, we provide only write permission to the group members. The write permission is given to file and to the directory. Now, let us move ahead. After discussing the file permissions, we will discuss how we can modify the permissions of file. There are two ways to modify the permission of file. One is using symbolic code. So, as I said, UGO, U stands for user, G stands for group, O stands for others. UGO are symbolic codes. The permissions are RWX, that is read, write, execute. A is for all users. Then there are notations like plus, minus and equal to add permission, to remove permission and to assign permission. So, when I am using all these notations, I am using symbolic codes. There is another way of modifying permissions to file or directory, that is known as octal notation. So, instead of using symbols like RWX, we will use octal notation. The numbers can be from 0 to 7. Each number has some significance. 0 means no permission and 7 means all permission. So, permissions can be granted or modified using either symbolic notation or using octal notation. The command to modify permissions is chmod. Chmod command accepts options and the permissions. When we say modes, it means those are the permissions that can be applied to either a file or a directory. chmod can be applied to multiple files using a single command. So, we can use the recursive option when we are assigning chmod to multiple files or within subdirectories. This is an example of modifying permissions. You can see we are using symbolic notations. So, in the first case, chmod u equal to rwx and file name indicates we are assigning read, write, execute permission to the user, whoever is the owner of that file. In second case, we are adding execute permission for user, group and others. Third case, we are removing the execute permission from others. In the fourth case, when we say A, it means all the users. A represents user, group and others. So, we are adding read permission for user, group and others, all three categories. And finally, if we do not use any notation, if the command is chmod plus r and file name, it is implied that the plus r is added to all users, that can be user, group and others. So, if we do not specify a symbolic code over here, the permission is applicable to all three kind of users. There is no need to write a plus r, we can simply write plus r. So, this is how permissions can be assigned using chmod command and using symbolic code. The next case is using octal notation. As I discussed, octal notation contains numbers from 0 to 7. You can see their binary equivalent 0, this is the binary equivalent, 1, 2, 3 and up to 7. So, this is the binary equivalent of 7. Now, when we say 0, it means there are no permissions. 1 indicates only execute permission, 2 indicates write permission, 3 indicates write and execute, that is 2 plus 1. When we say number 3, that is number 2, what we call write permission plus execute permission. So, this is the beauty of octal notation. We can either add 1 plus 2, 1 plus 3, 1 plus 4, 4 plus 2 and so on. Say for example, if I want to give read and write permission, I will use numbers 4 and 2. So, the total will be 6. If I want to give all permissions, then 1 plus 2 plus 4, 1 is for execute. So, I am giving execute permission, 2 is for read permission, 2 is for write permission and 4 is for read permission. So, I am giving all 7 permissions if I am using octal notation 7. This is an alternate notation. If a user is good in using symbolic code, he can use symbolic notation. If he is good in using octal notation, he can use octal notation. But there is a slight difference which we will see further. So, let us see examples of using octal notation. When the command is given chmod 700 file1.txt. So, the first 7 indicates users. Over here user gets all 3 permissions read, write, execute, and group and other members will not get any permission. The second example, we are giving 111 permission to the file. This indicates execute permission for user, for group and for others. Third command, we are giving 642 permission. 6 indicates 4 plus 2, that is read plus write. 6 indicates read plus write, 4 is read and 2 is write. So, the owner of the file has read write permission, the group members have read only permission because there is 4, and others have write permission. These are just examples. Usually such kind of permissions are not given to file because we are not allowing rest of the users to modify the file. And see the last case, chmod 000 file name. So, we are not granting any permission. Now, as I said, there is a slight difference. What happens if the file already has some permission, and if we apply the command chmod 000, it means we are removing all other permissions. We are completely removing the permissions and we are assigning 00 permission to the user, group and others. So, when we use octal notation, we usually assign fresh permissions. If we want to add or remove permission, there is symbolic notation, and from fresh permission assignment, if you want to assign certain permission irrespective of previous permission, then we use octal notation. So, system administrators can either use symbolic code or octal notation depending on the type of files they are dealing with. Let us move ahead. We have already seen how to modify permissions of a file and directories. Now, how to modify the owner of a file or how to change group of the file. So, there are commands like chown or chgrp, which allows us to change the owner of a file or to change the group of a file. Let us take an example. Suppose I have created a file, for example, program1.c. Now, I want my file to be given to someone else. I do not want to use that file, I want to give it to my students. So, I can change the owner of that file. Whoever creates a file is the owner of that file, but I am passing on the file to others. So, using the chown command, I can change the owner of the file, or I can use the chgrp command to change the group of that file. So, let us see the syntax. chown takes options, it takes the name of the new owner and it takes the name of the file. In the screen you can see test.txt file is belonging to the demo user who belongs to group 1. Now, in the next command I am changing the owner, the new owner is temp. I am not providing any options, I am providing the chown command with the new owner name, that is temp. And when you list the contents of the directory, that is the file, you can see the owner has changed. Earlier it was demo, now it is temp, although the group remains same. So, using chown command, I am changing the owner. Earlier it was demo, demo was the owner of the file, and now the owner is temp. You must note I am using root user. So, the super admin or the super user can change owner of any file, but usually a normal user can change the owner of his files. Normal user cannot change the owners of files that are created by other users. Let us move ahead. There is another command chgroup, change group. Here you can see the test.txt file belongs to group 1. After issuing the command, now it belongs to wheel group. You can see earlier it was belonging to group 1, the user was temp. Later on it belongs to the wheel group, the user is again temp. So, wheel group is the admins group. chgrp command accepts the group name as argument and the file name. So, the test.txt file which belong to the group 1, now it belongs to the wheel group. So, we have discussed two commands, one is chown to change the owner of a file and chgrp to change the group of any file. Usually, these commands are used by system administrators who want to share file among their users. Let us move ahead. There is a command umask. This allows us to change the default permissions of a newly created directory or a file. You might have observed when you create a file, it comes with some default permission, say read write permission for user and read permission for others. So, when I am creating a blank file or when I am creating a fresh file, there are default permissions which come along with that file. These default permissions, they come from umask. For directories, the value is 777 and for file, the maximum value is 666. So, when I say umask, whatever is the maximum value, the umask value is removed from that maximum value or it is subtracted from that maximum value. So, let us take an example. Suppose the umask value of a user is 022. It means when a user creates a file, the default permission of the file will be 666 minus 022. So, the result is 644. So, if my umask value is 022 and if I am creating a fresh file, the permissions will be 644. How it is 644? It is 666 minus 022. If I change the umask value, whenever I create new file, the permissions will be modified accordingly, and the same applies to directories. Usually, the Linux default umask value is 022. You can experiment with the shell, you can change the umask value and see what happens when you are creating files. You can create empty files using touch command. The touch command will create a blank file. So, it is very easy to create blank files. Instead of typing vi and typing content in the file, if you want to experiment with such commands, you can create n number of files using touch command. So, the syntax will be touch touch and file name. Umask can also be used in this way, that is umask, I am giving read permission to all users. So, it sets the mask of new file that will allow all users to read. Same kind of notations like a plus r, a minus x, u equal to rw, group and others, there are no permissions, or I can also use octal notation with umask command. So, this is how umask command can be applied, which helps in creating files with default permission. It is also applicable to directories as well. In the extra reading notes, I have given a short note on set user ID and set group ID, set uid and set gid commands, and I have also discussed something about sticky bit. Now, let us see what is set user ID, what is set gid. If I am creating a file and I am setting the uid value, that is the flag. So, when a process executes that file, it will take the access grants of the owner of that file. If the process executes the file with set gid flag set, then it will get the permissions of the group to which the file belongs to. So, set uid and set gid are applicable to the executable files, whereas sticky bit is more about sharing a file. Suppose I am owner of a file and I am sharing it in some directory, and if I set the sticky bit on, it means the other users cannot delete that file or modify that file. As you can see, the sticky bit, it gives permission to protect the files within a directory. So, if the directory has the sticky bit set, file can be deleted only by the owner and no other user. So, that is why sharing comes into picture. When we share a file, if I set the sticky bit on, no other users will be able to delete that file. That is how I ensure the file will be always there in the directory. It sticks to that directory. So, you can go through the extra reading notes and you can get an idea of all these kind of flags. So, to quickly summarize what we have discussed in this module, we started our discussion with the permissions of files and directories. We discussed what permissions can be given to file, what are the significances, and what permissions can be given to directory and its significance. Later we discussed using the chmod command how we can change the permissions of file or directory. Further, we discussed symbolic code and octal notation. There are two ways of changing the permissions to the files and directories. We also explored the use of chown and chgrp command. That is, if we want to change the owner or the group of any file, we can issue those commands. And finally, we discussed the umask command, which will help us to assign the default permission, that is the permissions to newly created files or directories. We can change the default permissions using the umask command. So, friends, please try to explore the commands that I have discussed in this module. The reading notes have certain examples, you can go through those commands. I hope it will be fun in dealing with these commands. You can share file among users, that is your friends, for among students and so on, and gradually you will become an expert system administrator who will make the system more secure. So, thank you so much for listening to this module.